This episode is extra special for us because we are actually recording it right here in Bombay. Our first ever podcast episode on Indian soil. So in a way, it feels like a full circle moment. Having someone who's taken Bombay to the world, now back in Bombay, sharing his story with us. I'm genuinely excited about today's conversation, not just because what our audience are going to learn, but what I'm going to learn from you. Because every time that I meet you, I learn a new thing about you.
That's very kind, but I'm sure that's not really true. I learn from you guys all the time, and I think as long as we continue to learn, we continue to enjoy what we're doing.
So would you be able to throw some light on that? Because it's diversity and the beliefs that it comes with.
Sure, this is a question that's never been asked of me. So just culturally, you've said I'm from Bombay, and I love the city more than anything else. My father was a Maharashtrian, my mother was a Parsi. I went to a convent school in Bombay. I grew up actually saying the Our Father who art in heaven is the first prayer that I ever learned.
I studied in a convent too, it was my prayer as well.
So the diversity comes in all over there. My wife is a Konkani, also from Bombay. So my kids may be a little confused actually, but it's fine. I think we're doing well with diversity.
So right now, the regional centers and the investors, the way they are getting the denials, right? Either it can be RFEs, NOIDs or NORs, but what is the right way of getting a denial? Is there a particular process to it?
Do you bring up the previous approvals or do you simply fight the NOID as it exists? You may have to do a little bit of both depending on each situation. We have to kind of vary with that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking for a theme, the theme is, I don't like loans. That's the immigration's thing, because you're not investing your own money.
Exactly. It
That's
beats the
the
whole
point.
purpose of the program, right?
Exactly. But you're not right now in the process of investing because you've taken a loan of $400,000. You've got multiple questions that can come up that can be very challenging and not always easy to answer. And then the issue becomes also, it's going to cost the investor more, because there's more work involved, the attorneys are going to charge you more, you're going to have more anxiety, and you really are not going to be able to tell the attorney, well, you respond to the RFE and I'm not paying you anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
So one of the things I really want to highlight in this episode is how emotional EB-5 journey is. People think it's just a financial transaction, but it's not. It's life-changing because you're not just moving money, but you're moving your own families, their futures with it. So do you see that emotional weight in your work on a daily basis as well, Rohit?
Yes, and in a strange sort of way, I actually welcome it.
I think behind every EB-5 family there is a story of faith. They're putting in your faith, the trust, the emotion, and the future. Hello everyone, and welcome back to EB-5 Decoded by Quantum Global. Today's episode is truly special because it's not just about the EB-5 visa or immigration paperwork. It's about people, about dreams, choices, and the courage to start over. When we talk about EB-5, we often focus on the timelines, investment amounts, and the promise of a green card. But behind every file is a family, a hope, and a story worth telling. And my guest today is someone who understands all of that, not just legally, but personally. He's a member of the immigration law group at CSG Law and one of the most respected voices in the US business immigration. He's worked extensively across H-1B, L-1, PERM, and EB-5 matters, helping business leaders, investors, and families navigate complex US immigration processes. But beyond his impeccable reputation, there is something else you should know. His reputation is as impeccable as his trademark bow ties. And I simply cannot introduce him without mentioning both. Those bow ties aren't just a fashion statement. They are symbolic to who he is. Meticulous, polished, and quietly confident. The kind of a person who brings warmth into every room that he walks in. He's originally from Bombay. A city mirrors his own character, fast-paced, cosmopolitan, and full of heart. And somehow, he's carried the essence with him all the way to the United States, never losing his humor, charm, or cultural grounding. And speaking of Bombay, this episode is extra special for us because we are actually recording it right here in Bombay. our first ever episode on Indian soil. So, in a way, it feels like a full circle moment. Having someone who's taken Bombay to the world, now back in Bombay, sharing his story with us. Rohit Turkhud, welcome. It's an honor and a privilege to have you with us on this episode today.
Thank you so much, Rashika. An absolute privilege and a pleasure. And I have to say, I don't recognize the person you introduced, but I will take the introduction. Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm genuinely excited about today's conversation, not just because what our audience are going to learn, but what I'm going to learn from you. Because every time that I meet you, I learn a new thing about you.
That's very kind, but I'm sure that's not really true. I learn from you guys all the time. And I think as long as we continue to learn, we continue to enjoy what we're doing, we continue to grow. And I think that's the most important part of my journey in immigration, and especially now with EB-5, doing this for almost over 11 and a half years now. So,
thank you. So, Rohit, something I have always admired about you is that you just don't practice immigration law, but you embody it. When I say this, you own life as such a blend with respect to diversity in your own personal life. So, would you be able to throw some light on that? Because it's diversity and the beliefs that it comes with.
sure, this is a question that's never been asked of me. So I'm going to take that little moment to pause. So just culturally, you've said I'm from Bombay and I love the city more than anything else. My father was a Maharashtrian, my mother was a Parsi. I went to a convent school in Bombay. I grew up actually saying the Our Father who art in heaven is the first prayer that I ever learned.
I studied on a convent too. It was my prayer as well.
So the diversity comes in all over there. My wife is a Konkani, also from Bombay. So my kids may be a little confused actually, but it's fine. I think we're doing well with diversity. My oldest son's wife comes from a background where her father is a Mona Sikh and her mother is Guyanese. So we just continue to add to the diversity. And I think it just makes us all just a much richer family. Culturally, I think it's fantastic. So I love it.
So as someone young in the industry, do you think that diversity actually comes into picture because you have traveled to so many other places and been there, seen that? Or is it just something you can embody it?
I think, honestly, it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of, again, like you correctly said, I went there as a student, I then migrated. I do understand the immigrant psyche. I do understand the family that you're referring to that's in the background. You do it as well as I do. There's no question about that. And as long as we can appreciate that, I think we can serve our clients well. Very often, my wife will tell me, why are you going beyond what you're asked? And I don't think she gets it, but I can't stop it either. So I will get into conversations that are beyond saying, well, do your green card this way or do your green card that way? Because I think a holistic approach is very important.
Does it also come because you yourself immigrated from India to there?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I understand the trials, tribulations of the family, the anxieties, the concerns. Though I have to say that the younger generation today, in many ways, has a lot easier in terms of immigration, particularly for visas like the H1. As an example, the H1 now is a dual intent visa, which has been for a while, where you can have the non-immigrant and the immigrant intent at the same time. In my days when I went on an F1, there was no dual intent. You had to have a non-immigrant intent, plain and simple. So there is that appreciation of all these different things that comes into play when you're talking to a client, because I think it allows me to ask the right questions.
So let's start with where EB-5 stands today. There has been a surge of interest from India, Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa now. But also there is a lot of confusion because there is grandfathering protection, there is gold card, then there is reauthorization of the program. So where does it stand today from your purview?
It's in a great position. I think information or lack thereof about the gold card, the platinum card, and other things that have been thrown about have made the EB-5 program a lot stronger, because the EB-5 program has been law since 1990. It's been reauthorized a few times, but it's a very solid program which brings money into the United States in the billions, which creates jobs for people in the United States, for the US workers, gives people green card opportunities faster. The question is not better, but certainly faster than a lot of other visas, returns capital to the individual in most cases if the decisions are made sensibly. There's no lose-lose situation. It's a win-win situation from the EB-5 program perspective. So I feel that the EB-5 program is in a very strong position. It is valid, like you correctly hinted at, until September 30th, 2027. Having said that, we also acknowledge that September 30th, 2026 is the guidepost for submitting all the applications so that they're grandfathered. So there is a difference between the two. And I'm not going to say crawl to September 30th, 2026, but we're certainly racing to September 30th, 2026. The urgency has only increased.
Correct. But then we've also seen so much movement with respect to US immigration policy, right? The Trump administration's recent remarks on tightening H-1Bs and F-1s, and the so-called US Gold Card, which in the last 1 year, at least since the announcement, we only have terms and conditions. But that is also, we don't know as to how far is it true. So if you had to compare between a US Gold Card and to an EB-5, what is the most viable and the reliable way for an investor who is looking to actually secure their future in the US should be looking at?
To sum up what you just said, it only makes the green card, the EB-5 program, stronger. And to go a little more into details, at least based on the information that I have so far, the gold card has been a statement. It almost seems to be, to me, like a statement of intent. Like you correctly said, there are no rules, there are no regulations. It's not too difficult to draw a difference between the EB-5 program and the Trump gold card. The EB-5 program is law. It has rules, it has regulations, it has guidance. It is usually the money is returned to the investor after a period of, let's say, 5 to 6 years. But the money comes back to you. You're earning an interest on that money, however dismal the amount may be at a 0.25 or a 0.5% simple interest.
Yeah.
Now compare that to the gold card. It's not law yet. There are no rules, there are no regulations. It's created a certain amount of conversation, but there's nothing that anybody can invest in right now. It's not an investment, it's a donation. In addition to that, you're donating that money per individual. And the definition of donation is simple, it's never coming back. So there isn't any question of earning any interest on it. If you just look at these things, and again, while I said it's per person, I forgot to mention that the EB-5 allows a whole family to migrate with one investment, as long as they all qualify. The family, of course, being the investor's spouse, and children under the age of 21. Okay. So when you look at all that, I'm not sure that it's even worth comparing the two. There are still people who will ask me that on a regular basis. And then I think once we have this conversation, they realize that there isn't much of a comparison over there, especially with the September 30th, 2026 deadline looming over our heads. Yeah. Because your choice is pretty clear. Either you file the EB-5 before September 30th, 2026, or you wait for the gold card rules and regulations to come out, and you see how you get it from there.
Correct. But then I've also noticed that many investors are more cautious. They're asking, how fast can I get the green card? But also, how can I make it bulletproof, given the recent RFEs coming into picture?
Different issues, I think, over there. So I'll try to separate those two. So first of all, it can never be a bulletproof application for EB-5, simply because the law requires the investment to be at risk. By law, there can never be a guarantee of a return of your money or on your money. So that's maybe one of the reasons why you get a dismal interest rate of 0.25 or 0.5%. That is the crux of the immigration program. When investors say, is the safety of my money guaranteed? You can only try to minimize your risk. You can never eliminate it. Because if you've eliminated the risk, you've got a guarantee of your money coming back to you, you just lost that EB-5 petition. That's something the investors need to understand. And I'm sure that you, as an advisor, always let them know that, because they cannot otherwise just invest and say, oh, my money is 100% going to come back to me. So that's not something that you want to do. You talked about the RFEs. I'm very happy to actually state that out of the hundreds of applications I've done, I probably have no more than 20 RFEs. And out of those 20 RFEs, there are probably not more than 5 that relate to the source of funds.
Okay.
Which means I'm being extremely maybe OCD to a point in terms of trying to make sure that the application, to use your words, is bulletproof from being questioned by the immigration, to make sure that we are establishing the source of the monies. So, but the RFEs that we're seeing these days seem to be at least focusing on things like loans, and we can talk about that a little later if you like. But those are issues that the immigration has always had a pet peeve with, starting from the early days of 1990. So I think that's a difference. You can try and bulletproof your application through the quality of your submission. The RFEs may come, but if you expose issues and you invite RFEs, that's a different approach.
But it's actually good for the investors if if the attorney has the OCD, right? Because if you're asking a number of other supporting documents, the easier for them, less number of RFEs or equivalent to no RFEs as well.
Totally. I completely agree with you. But most investors, I think it's human nature. So
Yeah.
I won't call it just the investors. Let's provide as little as we can and let's get as much as we can. So, and I think we Indians are pretty good at doing this, because there will always be I cannot get this document. Cannot get and have not tried are two different things. And unfortunately for them, being Indian, knowing how the Indian psyche works, I will force them into getting things and they get it. And at the end of the day, after having gone through the exercise in a lot of depth, when they get that approval without an RFE, they truly appreciate it. When they see the final product that our office submits to the immigration, they understand the reason why we asked for the documents, and they understand the gravity of the documents that are being submitted as well.
Correct. So would you agree that the mindset of the investors has actually changed because we are approaching September 30, 2026, from speed to structure, or vice versa?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question. And I think speed has become important, and they are certainly interested in doing the EB-5 quickly as they approach September 30th. I think, at the risk of maybe upsetting some people, I think the investors have let caution go to the winds for now. There are issues like loans that I don't think are being carefully enough considered by the investors. Maybe they're being more aggressive on the risk factor, being young, being willing to take risks, and to some extent feeling that with the changes in the administration, with the risks of their job, they need to get protection of the EB-5. And that is one of their best ways. And again, like I say very often, the only way that you're getting a green card faster is if you're marrying an American citizen. And I'm very careful with that, because the minute I finish that sentence, I say, that's a real marriage that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a green card marriage. I'm not talking about a sham marriage. In my opinion, that would surely be the worst mistake of your life. So that is not what I'm referring to. But outside of that, EB-5 is probably the fastest and the best way to get the green card for individuals and their families. So if you have a couple, both on H1s, and they've both done quite well over the years in their life in the United States, they certainly have the ability to do an EB-5.
Okay.
And many of them are putting that to risk and to the test to say, can I get my EB-5? You and I both know investors who have done, again, very well. They're working with large companies which give them a lot of stock options, RSUs, and it's credible and commendable to see folks in their early 30s having amassed that kind of wealth to be able to do an EB-5 without seeking assistance from their families and parents.
Yeah.
I think that is awesome. I just
Correct.
love seeing that, because it just tells you how well we Indians are doing in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, it's commendable actually, because I did see one of my investors who has put in the complete 800K from RSUs I'm like, that's incredible. And at a very young age.
Yes.
Early 30s.
Yeah, that's what I
very
said.
good.
I've seen it multiple times, and
Yeah.
it excites me when I see that always. Because I think it's such a positive reflection on how the Indians are doing over there and how well they're doing. Now, that's, of course, you got to put that into perspective with the administration's present, not quite sure what to call it, but their present tirade against the H1s, for lack of a better word. We'll see how the H1 scene plays out.
Yeah.
It's certainly causing anxiety. It's certainly causing tension with good reason. I'm not sure how the H1 lottery and the H1 system will play out next year, with employers being required to pay $100,000 per application. Also, there are other changes which may not be relevant to EB-5, but would certainly enhance the EB-5 possibilities, because there's something over there in the H1 called prevailing wages and what wage levels you pay to the H1 individuals.
Okay.
And there are 4 wage levels. So to just keep it at a simple level, what the administration has proposed is that if you're at level 1 wage, which is the beginner wage or the early start, you're allowed 1 entry into the H1 lottery. On the other hand, if you're being paid the highest level wages, which are level 4, you get 4 cracks at the lottery. So that almost seems based on the levels, which seems unfair, because you're probably going to have far fewer people at level 4 than you will have at level 1. Clearly, the entry levels will have more people, but we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how the American corporations deal with all of that.
Correct. So for our viewers who are coming here for the first time, what exactly is reauthorization and what is grandfathering protection?
So reauthorization, what it means is that as of October 1, 2027, Congress will have to reauthorize the EB-5 program. Right now, it's valid, or it's set to sunset on September 30th, 2027. We expect that it will continue. This is kind of a dangling sword that's hung over the head of the EB-5 investors for years on end, but it always passes. So we expect it will continue. We also expect it will continue because it brings in revenue to the United States. The president has pretty much acknowledged that, because there are friends and family of his who support the EB-5 program. It is a good program. There's no question. It creates jobs. It brings in money for free. How do you go wrong with that? Now, the grandfathering part of it, for some reason which to date I have never been able to understand, although the law is valid till September 30th, 2027, all applications that will be filed on or before September 30th, 2026 are grandfathered, which means they will be protected through the entire EB-5 process, even if the reauthorization does not happen. And this is now a part of the law. So it's not something that somebody can take away. And that's part of the reason why, like you correctly said, there's a rush. There are people excited about the EB-5 program, maybe throwing caution to the winds and wanting to get in the game. The other thing that's certainly influencing Indian investors, when I say Indian investors, I mean those born in India. Right, because it doesn't matter where they are. I think that's a common misconception that people have, that, oh, I have a Canadian passport, so things are going to go faster for me. And I always have to tell them that, no, it depends on the country of birth, not the country of citizenship. And they are concerned because the visa bulletin, which is issued on a monthly basis by the US State Department, which prescribes the available visas, is expected to go into a backlog, or technically what we call retrogression, relatively soon. Nobody knows what relatively soon means, by the way. Don't know if that's December, January, February, because people who claim to be gurus in this have failed miserably. So it's impossible to predict. It's a crystal ball that one is looking into with these things.
It's like a black box. You never know.
It is. It is. And I tell my clients, and you and I were discussing this offline, about filing applications faster, or talking to people, or people's concerns about getting applications filed before a certain date. And because of this looming possible retrogression, I tell people that, look, we will keep a close watch on the visa bulletin. Each month, the visa bulletin is released between the 10th and the 15th for the next month. So if for the month of November, the visa bulletin is released somewhere on the 15th, and we see that the dates for Indian-born applicants has retrogressed, we will be able to file the applications before the end of November so that the clients are protected, and then we can do what is called an interfiling, where we submit additional documents to complement and supplement the record that we've already filed. So that is possible. And there are several clients who we need to talk to about that, because source of funds, path of funds always takes time, especially if you're looking to do a good job. If you're looking to do just a job, that's a different story. That's just not the way it works with me or with my team. Yeah.
So in this situation, do you also see that Indian bond might retrogress faster than anticipated?
Not necessarily. Let me explain why I say that. So first of all, when you said oversubscribed, I think we need to draw a distinction between oversubscription and actually paying in.
Okay.
Right? Because your clients or my investor clients may certainly sign the subscription documents, but until the money is sent in, the signed subscription means very little. They are not tied into the regional center, nor is the regional center tied into them until the money is gone in there. So that can be an oversubscription issue, because people want to kind of try and lock in a space, lock in a place. That's fine. But I'm not seeing that as a deterrence to good projects or good applications, because as you know better than I do, there are probably over 500 regional centers in the market in the EB-5 space. I work with probably 10 or less than 10 most of the time. I've been very lucky or blessed to work with the best of the best regional centers. And the issues of subscription over subscription do come up. And that's where you can, if you have a relationship with the regional center. And when I say a relationship, I don't mean an economic relationship. I mean a relationship that's born out of trust and born out of knowing that your applications will be good and will be submitted. You can often talk to them and say, look, ABC investor is ready, but it's going to take a little bit more time to do the source of funds. But we basically are ready to invest, and the investor is very keen and committed to investing in your project. So those are things that one can do in terms of protecting the investor, protecting the regional center as well.
So, firstly, rightly said with respect to people subscribing for the project, but not really putting in the money. But that also, do you also say that people are giving into FOMO? The feeling of missing out, कि ये चला जाएगा मेरे हाथ से.
I thought it's the fear of missing out, not the feeling of missing out. But I think, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree with you, especially if they are, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say being induced or tempted into investing in a particular project without doing any real due diligence, or without doing due diligence for themselves. I encourage the investors to do the due diligence, because I always tell them, I have a very simple rule, which I think I repeat ad nauseum. It's your money, it's your investment, it's your green card, it's your risk, it's your benefit. The investment advisor can offer you the choices. The attorney can tell you whatever they want. At the end of the day, it's all about you. If you don't do your own due diligence, that's on you. It's a simple example. If there's an investor sitting in the United States and doesn't want to go see the project and make sure that it's a bricks and mortar, I think that's a problem. I think when you're looking to invest $800,000, which in my opinion is a ton of money, and you tell me you don't have the time to go and see a project at a regional center, where every regional center is more than welcoming of the investors. They are happy to see an investor come in and look at the project. And then you complain that, oh, I didn't get this and I didn't get that and this didn't happen and that didn't happen. That I don't think is fair. It's not correct. That's on you. So again, FOMO is probably true, but I think it's much more than FOMO.
It can also be like investors do not even want to let go of the control, but also want that compatibility with the regional center.
Tell me, what do you mean by control? What is the investor really controlling?
I would say the investor psychology also works in a way wherein I'm trying to get the control, saying that, yes, I have the superiority of doing it.
Yeah, sure. But I go back to, again, something that I like to tell the investors. How do you define success? How do you define the success of your investment? In my mind, and I've maintained this consistently, there are two parts to it. One is getting your green card, right? Which is based on job creation. We all know that. If the jobs are created, you're going to get your green card. The second pillar of success is, am I getting my money back? And you're really not going to know that for about 5 years. Let's say 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about control, what are you controlling? All that you can control is the ability to say, okay, the project, the 956F is approved. It's great. It's actually got vertical construction. Jobs are created. I'll get my green card. You don't have control over knowing whether the project is going to be successful at the end of the day to return your monies. So I think the investor also, and I encourage my investors to think about the investment return as opposed to simply saying, I'm going to get my green card. So that's why I said that, what are you really controlling? You're controlling your decision to invest in a project that's at least going to give you the green card. And then you're going to hope and pray to some extent, but also have done some due diligence, like, how is my money coming back to me?
Exit strategies.
We all know that typically there are two strategies for the regional center getting the monies back, right? It's either going to be a refinance or it's going to be a sale. So I think from that perspective, it's at least important to know what is this particular regional center's and this particular project's option. What are they more likely to do than not do? What is their track record? Even clients who are not using an investment advisor, and there are many who just feel like, oh, I'm good enough to do it on my own. And that may or may not be right. I'm not sitting in judgment on that.
Yeah.
But I always tell them, why don't you have your own Excel sheet, which has the criteria that are important to you, and then use that to compare all the regional centers so that you're then at least comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
And you're not comparing apples to oranges.
Correct.
At least have the same criteria against which you're judging the 3, 4, 5 regional centers that you're talking to.
Correct. So would you agree, Rohit, that this combination of reauthorization and grandfathering and the policy, the clarity has finally put into picture post RIA?
There is a lot of clarity on EB-5. There's no question. But one of the issues on which there is complete lack of clarity is, how long does the money need to be kept at risk?
The ongoing lawsuits.
The ongoing lawsuits, clearly. So pre-RIA, as we all know, the period of time for which the money has to be kept at risk is commonly referred to as the sustainment period.
Yeah.
Right? So pre-RIA, we know that the sustainment period was the 2 years of the conditional residency. With the new law, the immigration said it needs to be kept at risk for 2 years. And job creation has to be completed.
For those 2 years.
Yeah. They have not given any additional guidance in terms of when does the 2-year period start. Does it send when I send you, if you're the regional center, the check? Is it when you deposit my check? Is it when your account is credited? Is it after you complete the job creation? Is it when you lend the money to the JC? So many questions.
Yeah.
And the investors are confused. The business community is confused. And I think, as is fairly commonly known, the business community, comprising of developers mostly, would understandably prefer a 5-year timeline as opposed to a 2-year timeline.
Yeah.
So you've got a very natural conflict out there. The investor says, I want to keep my money with you for as little as time as I can because you're giving me diddly on interest. The developer says, I want to keep your money for as long as I can because I don't have to pay you any interest.
True.
And it's great, I'm using free money. So that's why you have the lawsuits. I don't think that the courts are actually going to opine on that. I have a feeling they're going to say, you guys do what you want and we'll just worry about it later. And the Immigration Service is probably going to just punt on it as they did before for many years until they actually defined sustainment period in 2018. It was then that we actually got to know it was 2017 or 2018. It's then that they said, okay, it's the 2 years of your conditional green card. So I think at this point in time, we really don't know, but there's so many big changes that came about. The investors are much better protected because of the audit controls, because of the requirements that you have to have an outside fund administrator to do it, to monitor. When I say to do it, what I'm saying is monitor the inflow and the use of the monies. So there are definitely greater protections for the investors, because there were, unfortunately, like in everything else, there were some bad actors and people lost money for no good reason. So RIA, or the Reform Integrity Act of March 15, 2022, has made a very good faith effort into trying to protect the investors.
So would you say that post-RIA, people who have invested in rural projects, given that 20% set aside, and now that since 2022, 3 years have passed, can they actually look at that repayment, or given the ongoing lawsuit, pata nahi kya hoga?
I think you've correctly said it, pata nahi kya hoga. So it's a question of how cautious does one want to be.
Okay.
I think it is fair to say that the rural projects do not have the track record yet of returning monies like the high unemployment areas.
Okay.
Because the high unemployment areas certainly were given preference by almost well over 90% of the investors before March 15, 2022. Right? So now they're going to wait to see, when does my money come back and how does that play in with the immigration, which you will not know until the I-829, which is the application to remove the conditions, is finally adjudicated. Because if they give the money back in, let's say, 3 years, and let's say the immigration comes out with a definition later on and says you needed to keep the money invested for 5 years. Now you've got a problem because your money was invested for 3, which means you're going to end up in litigation saying the law says I've got to keep it invested for 2 years. They gave it back to me in 3 because it was beyond the 2 years. You've given me a new definition saying I needed to keep it for 5. Where do I go from here? It does create a tension. I don't think there's any question. And I think people will always want to be cautious, and I'm almost sure, although I don't write those documents and I don't get involved in those documents, there will be language which lets the regional centers off the hook when they return the monies, saying that whichever is the more appropriate period decided by the immigration. And I am sure that if the regional centers, or at least that's what I think, that if the regional centers are returning monies before 5 years, they're probably going to take some kind of a sign off from the investor saying, we're returning the money to you because you asked for it at this point in time. But any risk vis-a-vis the green card is on you. I don't think that would be unfair.
But do you think also redeployment actually comes into structure during this particular situation? Let's say, example, there is a project which has a 3+1+1 situation. The structure is like that. After 3 years, the investor was eligible to get repaid. Okay? Okay. And then, yes, they have reached the I-829 stage as well. And the investor gets back the money. He is eligible to get back the money. But he decides to redeploy that money. Right? Do you think in this particular situation, his immigration risks are also taken care of?
Well, first of all, I think you used a very critical word out there, eligible. You're going to have to find the definition of eligible to get the money back. What was eligible? Was the job creation done? When did the 2 years start? You're back again to square one and saying, okay, what is the meaning of eligible?
But then if it's 3 years from the time that they have put in the I-526, let's say even the petition, it is anyways breached 2 years mark.
Yes, but don't forget the old sustainment agreement said 2 years of conditional green card.
Okay.
So you don't have the 2 years of conditional green card yet. So eligible itself is going to be open to a challenge and open to a proper definition. Right? That's what we'll have to find out. And then the question is, okay, you returned the monies. How is it impacting my green card? Now my money is not at risk. It's come back to me.
Yeah.
And I don't have my permanent green card yet. The I-829 is still out there pending. You've got questions. And okay, I choose to redeploy. question is, as an investor, why am I choosing to redeploy when I'm getting 0.25% simple interest? The point I think that I'm trying to make over here is that just from a practical perspective, I believe that the investors should be willing to have their money kept at risk for about 5 years. If you get it back sooner, you're never going to complain.
Yeah.
But if you go in saying that money is coming back in 3 years, now I'm going to use that money for my son's education or my daughter's marriage or whatever it may be, and you don't get it back, you're going to be really unhappy about the whole situation. So while there are a lot of good new protections under RIA, there are certainly questions that are still unanswered.
Yeah, I think we will know only in November.
Sorry?
We will know only in the month of November.
I
now.
think so. Yeah, somewhere there. Yeah, somewhere there. And again, I think you said that there are a couple of RCs that have returned, rural projects that have returned monies. I'm not aware of those, but I think that's great. But I'd love to know more details about it.
But I'm sure these regional centers also have taken that, let's say, written consent from the investors saying this is based on your wish and will. We are not liable for it.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, because if the regional center has put in their hard work, trust, everything in order to build that reputation, just because one investor needs it, it is to protect each other's backs.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But also we have to concede and acknowledge that every agreement that the investor signs has very little in there that protects them. They're written by the regional centers. They're written by Wall Street law firms. They are meant to protect the regional center. They're meant to comply with the immigration laws which say that the money is required to be at risk. I don't think it's any different from when you invest in an investment house like a Merrill Lynch or a Fidelity.
Yeah.
Nobody reads the fine print. Whether you're a lawyer or not, you still don't read it.
True.
And you've essentially kind of signed away the risks and said, okay, I understand that the risk is all on me, which is what you're doing when you're signing the regional center PPMs or the operating agreements.
But I think that is where also consultants, let's say example, as what we do at Quantum, is where it comes into picture, right? Ensuring that the PPM, because it's all flowery language. The whole PPM is a flowery language in order to, I mean, there are multiple regional centers out there who are doing a really good job, but there are some not as much. And that is where we come into picture in order to protect the investor while this is an investment at risk, but not necessarily that it needs to be a risky one though.
I agree with you completely, which makes you guys invaluable for the investor.
Now let's talk about something that every investor is whispering about, either in WhatsApp groups or with a personal conversation with attorneys, consultants, regional centers, and so on. The loans, right? So while we are seeing a lot of projects and a lot of investors who have taken a regional center loans are getting denials, right? When there is this particular angle of a regional center loan, what is permitted and what is not permitted? Because the truth is, loans are permitted in EB-5. But what kind of loans?
So first of all, that whisper is a pretty loud whisper. I think as you've noted from the RFEs, the denials, the noids, all of that stuff, right? I think, first of all, I'm going to make some comments in no particular order of importance, right? Loans has been an issue ever since the program started in 1990. Right in the beginning, there were investors, very savvy, very smart, who essentially were taking loans and then investing that money into the EB-5 program. And the immigration absolutely hated that because they said, none of this is your money. You've got nothing at risk. So there was no investor's money at risk. Now we seem to be treading that path again. And I think it's not unsurprising that they've got to look at the loans and say, what is it? You're right. Loans are allowed. Unsecured loans are allowed. And there was a decision, I think it was called Matter of Zhang, that came out in December of 2018, where they said an unsecured loan is perfectly fine because if I'm taking a loan from you and putting it into the project, it's still cash that I'm putting into the project. As long as I can prove the source of that money, that is fine because it's cash. So we know that loans have been allowed. Now, when you said regional center loans, I just want to clarify. I think what you mean is loans that are being extended by probably affiliates of the regional center, right? So they are somewhat at an arm's length transaction basis. They're separate companies, they're separate incorporations, probably for tax purposes, liability purposes, all of that, and structured based on the advice of their corporate counsel, their tax counsel, and hopefully the immigration counsel. There's still a question of how and what is permitted versus what is not permitted. In a way, is the result of an approval or a denial, right? Sometimes we've seen cases where there's approval of a loan program and then some other officer picks up a different file and issues the RFE and issues a denial. So your somewhat luck of the draw plays a little bit of a role out here. But if it's as an example, I think what may not work is if a regional center is giving part of their proceeds to the lending company. And the lending company is then giving that money to the investor as a loan. I think the immigration is uncomfortable with that because they feel the money is just being circulated or recirculated, not the way it is intended. On the other hand, if it is a separate company that has a separate source for the funds that it is then lending out, I think is probably more acceptable. So there are questions that are out there that will need to get answered, may need to get resolved. We unfortunately cannot depend on the Immigration Service for clarity on it in any timely manner. They've never been known to do anything timely. So why would they start now? Right? That's certainly a question in my mind. I have always preferred the non-loan model. When I say the non-loan model, I mean investors not taking a loan.
The plain vanilla model.
Yeah, the plain vanilla model, because we know it gets approved. We know it's not going to get questioned. If what you're trying to do, and again, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm not criticizing anybody, it's just a matter of fact right now. A lot of people on H1s who have some part of the money, don't have all the money, are basically trying to, get the loan and then do it. I feel that the investors are not looking properly at so many things they should be looking in the loan. What is the interest you're going to pay? How often do you need to pay the interest? I've seen a regional center loan which required the entire year's interest to be paid right in the beginning of the year. You're looking at an outlay of $25,000 to $40,000 depending on the interest right off after you've finished your Christmas shopping and giving everybody in your family gifts for the holidays. You now got to come up with a large chunk of money to pay that interest down. H-1Bs are taking these loans. Think about the fact, what are they trying to do with the EB-5? They're also trying to protect and hedge against the possibility they might lose their job. Now, if you lose your job and you've taken a loan of $400,000, how are you going to pay it back? I like the idea of being optimistic. I like the idea of throwing out positive vibes into the universe. I like all of that. But somewhere you got to be a little cautious and say, okay, I'm taking a loan of $400,000. Do I have the ability to pay it back? Am I going to be able to do it? And you got to pay it back in a limited amount of time. You're not getting a 30-year mortgage to pay that loan off. So I just feel there are so many things. Again, I am certainly not judging anybody in terms of right or wrong. I'm just saying go into it a little carefully. And if you don't need it, but you're staking it simply because you're earning more interest on your own stocks, maybe that's not a good idea. We've all seen the markets being volatile. Yes, right now the stock market is doing fabulously well, but you're not selling your stocks. You're not really realizing the gain. It's a paper gain, paper loss, right? So I just feel loans, you need to be very careful. The structuring of the loans is important. I don't get involved in structuring the loans, but it's important to figure out and understand what you're getting into before you take that loan, because the loan is not of a small amount. You may be taking a loan from a relative or a friend, and that's a different issue, and that also has its issues. Clearly, and I always like to point that out to the people, and I, for one, insist on speaking with the lender because I want the lender to understand their commitment to the investor. Not that I can do anything about it if they just put their hands up and say, go to hell. But I want them to know that the investor is my client, and if there is an RFE, if there is a NOID, at least morally, I want them to know that they have a responsibility to complete what they got into. You jump into the deep end of the swimming pool, you got to finish it.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. So the loan model is there, it's prevalent, it's popular, which unfortunately also means you're going to see more RFEs, more noise, more denials. And it's not like one lawyer is structuring all the loans for all the regional centers,
Correct.
right? Everybody's using different attorneys.
Yes.
So that again makes it different as well.
So would you say with, let's say there are two regional centers. One of the regional centers, like you said, they have their own proceeds. They have created an LLP, and that LLP is providing the funds for. And then you have another regional center, which is maybe tied up with a bank in the background, right? And that bank is going to be providing for that loan. So in these two situations, if there are two RCs, what would you say from your legal opinion?
Based on my little legal experience and little legal knowledge on this specific issue, I would be much more comfortable with the bank. Because the bank is an outside company. It's an agency that is intended to give loans. They are lending the money to the regional center versus because I think, again, on the other side, when you have a regional center that's got its own funds and it's creating this lending company, it does open you up to more questioning by the immigration. Fine, where did that money come from that you're lending to your lending company? Is there any kind of Ponzi scheme out there? Did you use it from any other EB-5 project that you have going? Was it intended to be used to return to investors from a different project and now you're using it for this? Just so many questions. I feel like once you get into that, you're opening a can of worms. And then you better be ready for being able to answer that. Again, the regional center, as good as it may be, at the end of the day, will put their hands up and say, sorry, can't do anything more about this. We tried our best and the immigration service didn't accept our model. So you've got a denial, right? I mean, that's what the regional center is going to do. That's their objective, clean business decision. Not necessarily faulting them. I think it's the investor who has to decide, do I have the stomach to take this risk?
Correct. So right now, the regional centers and the investors, the way they are getting the denials, right? Either it can be RFEs, noise or NORs, but what is the right way of getting a denial? Is there a particular process to it, or is it dependent on the USCIS?
To some extent dependent on the USCIS, because an RFE and a NOID raises the same issues. They challenge the same issues. The big difference is you get less time to respond to the NOID as opposed to the RFE. So you want the RFE. And I've had one case many, many years ago where they issued two RFEs, one after another, which is fine, but gives you more time to respond as opposed to getting annoyed. I'm not sure how the officer decides to issue an RFE versus deciding to issue a NOID, but it's more time. Essentially, the issues will be the same, because if you don't satisfactorily respond to whether it's an RFE or a NOID, you're going to end up with a denial. I mean, they do have the right to issue a second NOID, they do have the right to issue a second RFE, but they don't usually do that. They'll usually issue a denial at that point in time.
Got it. So do you also agree that given the change in the USCIS leadership, the structuring has also gone haywire a little bit?
Well, let me ask you a question in return. Why do you feel the change in leadership has caused a change in restructuring? Could it not be that it's the fact that we have a deadline of September 30th, 2026?
Actually, it's a mix of both, right?
Yeah. But the change in leadership, I'm not sure how much they've changed vis-a-vis the EB-5. They haven't changed the rules. They haven't changed the regulations. They haven't changed the fact that you need a fund administrator. They haven't changed any of that.
But the change in the director, his thought process might be an inclination towards the structuring being so different in the last 3-4 months.
Or being just tougher.
Yeah, either we can say tougher or maybe the structuring, because see, these loan models were actually getting approved 6 months ago, and the same ones are getting RFEs and NOIDs now. So is there a thematics that we are looking behind it?
I like to think it's much more dependent on the individual adjudicating officer. I don't think it's thematic. And the risk over here is you really can't go back and say, hey, your office approved ABC and Miss XYZ, Because suddenly they're going to go back to those two and reopen those and deny those, which they can do.
Right.
So it's a very fine line that you're treading over here. That do you bring up the previous approvals, or do you simply fight the noid as it exists? You may have to do a little bit of both, depending on each situation. We have to kind of vary with that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking for a theme, the theme is, I don't like loans. That's the immigration's thing, because you're not investing your own money.
Exactly. It
That's
beats the
the
whole
point.
purpose of the program, right?
Exactly. Like I have to tell my L1 clients, the fine. L1, you're transferring money through your company, through your corporation. And that's the way it is meant to be. For an EB-5, the money has to be your personal money coming out of your bank. It's not coming out of the company that's sponsoring you for an L1. So you've got to be able to draw that difference. And what is it that the immigration is looking for? If the investor doesn't have much at risk, if I'm only invested $400,000, the project fails, I've lost my money, and I don't have the ability to repay the $400,000. The regional center is going to have to sue you. It's going to have to go through all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And already you're seeing where people are taking these kind of loans that the immigration is issuing an RFE right away. Where's the rest of the investment? You're allowed to be in the process of investing. That's fine. That's a whole different discussion and a whole different source of funds issue. So, but you're not right now in the process of investing because you've taken a loan of $400,000.
Yeah.
So you've got multiple questions that can come up that can be very challenging and not always easy to answer. And then the issue becomes also, it's going to cost the investor more because there's more work involved. The attorneys are going to charge you more. You're going to have more anxiety. And you really are not going to be able to tell the attorney, well, you respond to the RFE and I'm not paying you anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Correct.
Now, it's a service provider who's going to charge you for the work that they've done.
Yeah.
So I just think sometimes it's unavoidable, and I understand that. I just wish that the investors spend time, do their due diligence, and understand what they're jumping into.
Correct. So given the speed and the grandfathering and the urgency of everybody wanting to apply for EB-5, what is that one advice would you give to the potential investors who are looking at this loan model? Should they be or shouldn't they be right now?
Look at the loan, understand the loan, try to figure out where is the money coming from. Try to figure out what is it that you're going to owe. Don't put your unborn child at stake to repay that loan. Obviously, I'm using that very euphemistically, but that's what you're essentially doing, because if God forbid you lose your H1 job, you don't have income coming in, and now suddenly you're going to be saying, I got to pay $400,000. I've got a denial. I'm not getting my $400,000 back because it's already put into the project. Plus, I owe this additional $400,000, and I don't even have a green card. What am I doing? The consequences can be very drastic and dramatic for individuals, and they can be very sad.
And it's an emotional journey.
Hugely emotional. I completely agree with you. Hugely emotional. And that, on a personal note, that I find that very troubling because, especially for the younger folk, I don't think the age matters. Let me take that back. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It is an emotional journey. And if you suddenly see you haven't got your green card, you've lost your $400,000 and you owe somebody $400,000 and you lose your job. The impact on somebody's psyche is, in my opinion, unimaginable.
Yeah, because somebody is putting everything that they own into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And maybe there's some truth to a lot of people saying, hey, India is booming. It's not such a bad place to be in. The way I look at it, it should not become an ego issue.
Yeah.
And that is very common amongst us Indians. How can I go back? What will my neighbors think? What will my parents think? Have I just destroyed my entire family's dreams by not getting my green card?
But
I'm not belittling those concerns.
But Rohit, isn't it also that situation that, let's say, example, a family, early couple has moved to US, they have their kids, the kids are used to that particular lifestyle. And because of that, they really want to do it. And there are very, very little chances for them to come back because the kids are so used to that lifestyle. And for them to get adjusted to Indian lifestyle, it's like...
What's your definition of kid? How old?
I would say anything about 10 is very difficult to change the mindset.
Is it? I would have said
10.
much more of a teenager. I would have probably said more to 12,
Yeah.
13, 14 becomes more challenging. I have a client, by the way, who just cannot bring their child back to India because of health issues. That's a whole different ball game. Only child, health issues,
That's-
was okay in Singapore, but just cannot be in India because of the pollution and other things. Now that, I think, is a different issue. Kids, I think, adjust quite well when they have to. I'm sure it's dependent, and I'm making a very sweeping statement, and I understand that as well. But you got to look at everything. What is the kid going to do in the US if they find that the EB-5 program, whatever, the EB-5 for their case has blown up, and you're suddenly facing things like, I'm talking about worst case scenarios, right? I'm talking about depression, mental anxiety. You're talking about bankruptcy. I mean, can you imagine the impact of that versus coming back to India and saying, I'm going to lower my standard of living? If that's the case, I'm going to be living with my nana, nani and dada, dadi, and I'm going to live with my entire, coterie of a million cousins over here. It's not that bad. As long as you have a roof over your head.
Yeah.
I will say that. As long as you have a roof over your head, India is certainly not a bad place to be in. I realize that I'm not here, but I'm not making that statement lightly either. I don't think so, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sense of family is way, way more important. And honestly, I think it makes you adjustable for everything that life throws at you, right?
Yeah. Eventually you will.
Yeah.
You will adjust. The 13-year-old may come back with an American accent and then be laughed at for a little while till their Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, whatever it is, gets perfect. And you know something? This is almost it is a funny comment. When I land in Bombay, my Marathi, Hindi, Gujarati just come back very naturally with no American accent. At least I don't think so. Maybe the shopkeeper realizes I'm from the US for a variety of other reasons. But if I can adjust, I don't think the kids have a problem. They'll adjust.
For me to make that statement was also because these days, when I'm speaking to a lot of potential clients who are on H1B per se, right? Their main concern is, बच्चे वहाँ पे set नहीं होंगे, is the thing. And that's
an
the
emotional
primary
statement.
reason.
But that's an emotional statement.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that's my belief, and I could again be wrong. I'm not trying to supplement. I'm certainly not trying to supplement a parent's opinion.
I know.
There's no question about that. But all that I'm saying is that think about it in the larger scheme of things, in the large picture. Don't make it say, बच्चे adjust नहीं होंगे. क्यों नहीं adjust होंगे? कहाँ पे adjust नहीं होंगे?
Yeah.
And if the Trump administration has their way on the new H1s, adjust to karna padega, right?
You never know what is happening tomorrow because
Exactly.
it's the land of uncertainty right
Exactly. Today we impose 100% tariff on something. Tomorrow it's knocked down to 40%. So we have no idea how the conversations go.
now.
Yeah.
Correct. So, let's say in case of a legal denial for somebody who is looking at an RFE right now on a regional center loan, should they also be, because I have situations like this wherein an investor has put in their money, there is a regional center loan, they have gotten an RFE, but they're doing it for their kids who are on F1s, right? They're like, Rashika, it's okay. $400,000, great, everything. But let me start a simultaneous I-526E petition so that even because the RFE has come and given the situation that the denial is going to come today, tomorrow, or maybe in 2 months down the line, given we are going to be on an extended vacation due to December now, January tak aaya, to at least uske paas EAD AP aa jayega. So what do you think in that situation? Precaution is better than cure?
Wow. That is really a tough one because I've faced one of those situations from a client came in and said, I've lost the 400, exactly the situation that you mentioned. And I'm like, okay, so where's the new 400 coming from? Another loan.
No, I'm not saying that. 400 is the first 400 is something that he's put in by himself. The parent
Agreed.
is doing. The next 400 is a loan.
But is the first 400 that he has taken supported by a loan from the RC, or he's only put in 400 and where's the balance coming from for that particular project?
The balance for the next, at least for the next one, wherein he's
Not the
taking
next one. What about the
precaution.
first one?
The first one, the 400, we don't know until a denial comes. He's not going to get it back.
Forget about getting it back because
Yeah.
the project has used it. It's not coming back.
Yeah, it's
End
going
of
to
story.
take stipulated time. Yeah.
Exactly. My question is, he has put in 400 to the 800, right?
Yes.
Instead of 800.
Yes.
But he has to show the immigration where's the balance 400 coming from.
Correct.
Even if he hasn't taken a loan.
Yeah.
So he's still obligated to put in that extra 400. Okay, he'll get a denial. That's fine. Second RC that he's looking at to do a new EB-5 petition, where is that 400 coming from, or the full 800?
Planning to take a personal loan.
Based on what? Who's giving you a personal loan? Is it going to be unsecured? Is it going to be secured? Is it in India? Is it outside? Sorry, is it in the US? Again, it's not I don't think it's a simple question. When I get into these conversations, I really make them think about it. And maybe I'm going beyond the call of my line of duty. But I want them to understand, what am I doing here? I'm going to file another one. Is the second filing going to be approvable? Is it a good faith approvable one? Or am I doing something similar to the first one and going to end up with another RFE and annoyed?
Yeah.
And so if you already have your EB-5, now you're also filing 2 AOSs.
Yes.
You filed one which you're expecting to get denied. However, you're filing a second one, and the only reason why you're filing the second one is because you're expecting India to retrogress. Right? Because if the first one is denied, you may be able to win on appeal, in which case your AOS is still good.
Yeah.
Because after that, after the EB-5 petition is denied, then the AOS is going to get denied. When the AOS is denied, that's when the EAD and the advanced parole go out of the window.
What's the stipulated timeline, let's say, for the 526E to get denied and the AOS to get denied?
Yeah, the question is, are you going to appeal that denial? The minute you appeal the denial, they're not going to deny an AOS. So you really have to think this through and know what it is that you need to discuss this with your immigration counsel. Understand what your options are, understand what you're thinking about, and maybe the final answer comes to saying, do another EB-5 and file another AOS. Maybe. But that's a call that has to be made carefully, should not be just made in haste.
But what about a situation, let's say, for the first petition, EAD has come into picture, AP has also come, and the primary applicant has used the EAD
Okay.
and then gotten an RFE for the I-526C.
Okay.
In that case, if he does do this precaution is better than cure method by simultaneously filing it, do you think that there are going to be a chances of the AOS not being into... I mean, it is going to take a lot more time because the primary applicant already has an AOS of the first petition.
Sure, but why? But it would be the entire family that has an AOS, right?
No, I'm talking... let me rephrase this whole
Yeah,
question.
primary
right?
applicant, is that the only applicant? Are there no spouses, children?
No, it's an F1 student.
Okay, so F1 student, okay. So the F1 student has received the AP, has received the EAD, so has possibly traveled out,
Yes.
has used the EAD.
Yes.
And now that F1 student says, I'll file another EB-5 petition, file a new AOS, so I get it. But my reasoning, I think, still stays the same in terms of you need to discuss with your immigration counsel whether the expected denial is appealable.
Okay.
If it is appealable, you're kind of locking your AOS. It's still staying pending. So your EAD is not going to get denied, and you will not have unauthorized work. So you will still be in a decent position. Now you're filing a second EB-5. You need to gauge the strength of your second EB-5 filing, I think, before you do an AOS. Again, you might say, I want to file the AOS because I just want to protect it, because if it retrogresses, I won't be able to file my AOS.
Correct.
That's fine. But all that I'm saying is you have to look at the facts carefully. You have to holistically review it and say, what's my best option? What is because otherwise all that you're doing is you're spending good money after bad. you need to be careful. It has to be looked at on a fact by fact basis. And maybe the best decision is to file a second EB-5 and a second AOS. But you should not at that point be surprised if the immigration comes back where you have not withdrawn your first AOS, comes back and says, well, we're denying the EAD or the advanced parole because we've already issued you one.
There are chances of that
That can happen. I will give you a much stranger case that I have going on right now. Client is from Bombay, lovely family. I feel really bad for them. Advanced parole issued to the child, 526 pending.
Okay.
Advanced parole issued.
Yeah.
EAD issued but not approved but not issued.
Okay.
And the reason for that in their written notification says, we have approved your EAD, but we're not issuing it because we've approved your adjustment of status and you have a green card. It is the most convoluted, stupid reasoning. We've already tried to fight this twice. I think we're getting to the stage where we have a congressional representative involved. And if it doesn't get resolved in the next 15 days, we'll probably sue the immigration. Because their reasoning is factually wrong and makes no sense. If the application was approved, you should have denied the advance parole as well.
Correct.
On your own site, the application is showing as pending. How do you approve my EAD and then not issue it because I have a green card? Clearly, I don't have a green card. These things can happen.
Yeah.
Could I receive an advance parole approved for Rashika with Rohit's photograph on it? Absolutely. Happens. But those are different things. But all that I'm saying is you need to be cognizant. You need to factor in all these things as you make your decisions for your next steps.
So one of the things I really want to highlight in this episode is how emotional EB-5 journey is. People think it's just a financial transaction, but it's not. It's life-changing because you're not just moving money, but you're moving your own families, their futures with it. So do you see that emotional weight in your work on a daily basis as well, Rohit?
Yes. And in a strange sort of way, I actually welcome it. Because I feel it allows me to, and you correctly said it earlier, just a second ago, that it's not a transaction. That's what I tell them. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship.
True.
Obviously, at that point, I'm referring to the investor's relationship with the immigration attorney. As an investment advisor, business dictates that you get your investor, get him to invest, and you move on to the next one. Same thing from a regional center's perspective. You get the money in, they invest, you move on to the next investor. From an immigration lawyer's perspective, you're holding their hand through the entire journey in a very, at least I like to feel, in a very supportive and yet honest way. As I tell them, I'm not here to give you convenient answers. You're paying me to give you honest answers.
Yeah.
So ask the questions, even if you don't like my answers. Just today, I can tell you, I sat in the morning with an investor who's coming up for an interview. And I've already been through this with them twice. Yet they just wanted to come and meet and say hello. And I told them, don't bring your entire box of packages with me. What do? They bring everything. And I was like, when they were leaving, I was like, why did you bring it? I told you not to bring it. You didn't even take it out of the box. They said, yeah, but we just had to carry it. So that's the emotional, and it's not a baggage. It's the emotion that goes, like you correctly identified, with moving the kids, with moving the family. Where are they going to go to school? How are they going to adjust? I've had a client tell me, oh, I'm the primary applicant, but I have never lived on my own. It was in my father's house before marriage and in my husband's house. Now my husband is not taking the EB-5. I've got to go there on my own and be with the kids, and you have no idea what trauma it's causing me. These are all examples of emotions which are very, very valid emotions. So I've also been, I'm going to say accused, for lack of a better word, by some clients saying, and I was like, why did you call? Oh, I just called because I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to hear your voice. It's fine. You're like my unpaid psychiatrist. I'm like, listen, I don't have a degree in being a shrink. I guarantee you that for sure. But I think it allows you to build that relationship where you go beyond just being an attorney-client. And I actually enjoy that. I'm often lectured by my wife and my kids, like, why are you getting into this conversation? It's got nothing to do with what they asked you.
Yeah.
But they don't understand it because they're not doing my job. And I'm okay with that. It's fine. But you're 100% right. It's an emotional journey. It's an emotional investment. It's beyond money. definitely beyond money, because they all realize they all have the money to do it. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
So that's just the economic part of it. But there is an emotional part of it, which is clearly very engaging, which requires, again, for lack of a better word, TLC. There's no question about it. And I think they earn it. Why not?
Yeah. I think it's more less of a legal opinion, but more of a reassurance that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And very often, of course, clients don't do what you tell them to do. Let's not forget that part of it as well. Then allows me to scream at them or tell them that, listen, if I had any more hair on my head, those would have gone too if I was dealing with you. So.
And after guiding so many families, what's the moment that has stayed with you wherein you felt, this is why I do what I do?
One, I enjoy dealing with people. I honestly, sincerely do. And I take an interest in their immigration path. Nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm sure that I've pissed off somebody or the other at some point in time. I try and make up for that. Sometimes people don't necessarily account for that, and that's okay too. That's also part of the relationship. But I just know that I can sleep well knowing that I've given them my honest advice. I have not made up anything to tell them a lie. I have not guided them improperly. And I actually do enjoy that, because I feel that maybe this is not the right way it comes across, but at my stage of life, I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I'm doing it because I know that I'm doing the right thing. That for me is super important. And I enjoy being here and talking to people. I mean, clearly, if I'm making 4 trips a year to India from the United States, it does take a bit of a toll.
Absolutely.
By the time I finish this trip, I will have stayed more than 100 nights at the Marriott, which is, of course, a nice status to have. But that's all just part of the journey.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. It's a lot of pleasure that goes into it. And the moment that stays is when the client says, yes, I've got my green card. Or it comes to the office and you see it in the office and now it's like, okay, I'm sending it over to you. I get more thank yous than upset people, which is a great weighing scale to have.
Yeah. I think behind every EB-5 family there is a story of faith. They're putting in your faith, the trust, the emotion, and the future.
And there's a sacrifice involved.
Absolutely.
There's no question that there is the lost opportunity cost when you're investing and you're getting 0.25% and you're saying, oh my God, if I was sitting in India and I invested this, I could have got 20+% and what am I doing? Of course, all those things come into play. It's a whole picture. It's not one isolated part that, as they say, several parts make a whole. So I think that's what it comes down to. No question.
So now let's talk about retrogression, because when we talk about retrogression, obviously internationals get a lot anxious about this. Given the whole speed and grandfathering in picture, what is it that we are looking, your anticipation could be like? While I understand it's a black box, we don't know how it is going to be, but your hunch on it.
You asked a question earlier which comes back again, which I don't think I actually answered. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do that. Like, how do you know that there's going to be retrogression and the speed of processing as well? So what is retrogression based on? It's obviously on simple supply and demand, right? You have more demand than the supply of visas and you have retrogression. We know that worldwide you have only 10,000 visas available for EB-5. We know that each person counts as a visa. It's not the family that counts as a visa. We know that these numbers can change every month based on the visa bulletin. Knowing all these facts, and India at a 10% gets, or at a 7% gets only 7.1%. Each country gets 7.1% of that 10,000. So you get only 700 visas, right, for India every year. Every year being the USCIS's financial year of October 1 to September 30th of the next year. We know that there are over 1,500 or 1,600 applications still pending, which have not been approved, the 526 petitions. If you assume that each petition has at least 2 people, That's
Yeah.
3,000.
Yeah.
3,000 divided by 7 is taking you over 4 years in any case whenever that retrogression hits. And that can change because a death would reduce the visa number to be used. A birth would increase the visa
Yeah.
number to be used. A marriage would increase the visa number to be used. All these things are constantly changing. And it's not just a question of the visas being available, it's a question of how quickly is the application approved or denied. Then, if you're outside the country, you're dealing with the National Visa Center and the consulate where it's being processed.
Yeah.
All these variables make it almost impossible to predict with any degree of certainty as to how far it's going to flow back. There have been people who were in charge of the visa bulletin for multiple decades who have made predictions that have been proven wrong a month later. So, yes, we
Yeah.
do know, and it makes sense to be aware and fearful of the fact that India will retrogress relatively soon. Don't know what relatively soon means.
Yeah.
Don't know whether it's December, whether it's January. But if I had to go back and say, how far is it going to go back? It could be as far back as the start of March 15, 2022. You don't know because pretty much most of the applications that we filed before 2022 have been approved. However, although the application may have been approved, the green card may not have been issued.
Yeah.
So until the green card is issued, the visa number is not allocated. So just having a 526E approval doesn't mean it's going to get counted against the visa numbers.
Correct.
So until the adjustment of status is approved when you're in the US, or the consulate actually stamps your passport with the visa, actually that's not correct either. Because after you get the stamp, you're a green card holder only after you make that first entry into the US. So again, depending on when all these different things are counted, you're going to see a retrogression. And you don't know how far that'll go. And usually what happens is the first 2 quarters of every financial year, the visa numbers will move ahead fairly rapidly. It will slow down in the 3rd quarter, and then it will stall in the last quarter.
Correct.
So there is a valid fear, though nobody knows when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I said earlier that there are clients where I will watch the visa bulletin till the 15th of the month and then see whether it's retrogressed for December. If it's not, everybody breathes a sigh of relief. If it does, everybody gets to work overtime.
Yeah. So unfortunately or fortunately, that's the reality for Indian investors,
Yes.
right? Because it's a month-on-month wait-and-watch basis.
Yep, absolutely.
So when you have to look at informed choices, would you say that just look at the bulletin and then decide on your I-526C petition date? Because that also puts in a high amount of, I would not say risk, but a high amount of, how do I phrase this rightly? Wherein currently the urgency is very high, right? And every month-on-month basis, given, let's say, example, November is the month that the highest number of petitions might happen because December is again a cold month until January 15th. So do you think that because of the urgency and because of November being current, the highest number of petitions that at least for Indian and Chinese nationals that we would see would be this month?
Maybe, but how will that matter? It's not going to affect the visa bulletin. Because remember what I just said, the visa bulletin is impacted by the actual issuance of the green card.
Yeah.
So it's not impacted by the number of petitions filed.
Yeah.
If anything, it's going to be impacted by the number of petitions approved. Because after the petition is approved, will the adjustment of status be decided? Or the consular processing go into effect where the visa is then issued?
Correct.
So it's not going to be the number of petitions filed. It's going to be the number of petitions approved that's going to influence the way the retrogression takes place as well, to some extent.
Got it. So based on the current consultations that you would be doing for your potential and your current clientele also, do you see that now or never moment for EB-5?
It's never a now or never for EB-5. It may be a now or never for the petition, for the investor.
No, because I'm asking you this only because of the grandfathering, because the influx is crazy right now.
Yeah, now or never, yes, because of the September 30th, 2026 deadline, made even exaggerated, even greater degree of urgency because of not knowing what's going to happen with the visa bulletin. People who are outside the United States and are not looking to file the adjustment of status, maybe less of an urgency, but still you want to get into that line as soon as you can and secure your priority date, clearly. So, but for people who are in the US, the urgency is greater because you want to be able to file the adjustment of status, because that's going to give you the EAD, it's going to give you the advanced parole, it's going to protect you from losing your job, the impact of losing your job, it's going to protect you from not having an OPT-based job, it can protect you from so many different things. So there's no question about it.
Got it. So if you were advising an investor right now, would you say wait for the backlog to clear, or strategically file under a reserved or a different category?
Well, you have to file under a reserved category because those are the only two that are really out there that are being offered. It's
But I
either
think
going
the
to
number
be...
of people applying for rural, I think rural is going to retrogress much faster.
You
than
may be
HA.
absolutely right. And that's a fear that I share with clients, and that's a fear that has been expressed quite commonly in the industry. That because of the number of people subscribing to rural, that may bottleneck a lot faster than the high unemployment. And we have seen that happen in different employment-based categories. If you talk to people who are in H1, the normal process for proceeding or progressing from an employment base, from an H1 to a green card outside of EB-5 would be going through what is called an EB-2 or an EB-3, right? Now, there is a reason why the employer will typically file the equivalent of an EB-5 petition for EB-2 and EB-3.
Okay.
Because there are times the EB-3 moves faster than the EB-2. The EB-2 is meant for a higher category with master's degrees qualifications or its equivalent. EB-3 is for bachelor's degree or equivalent. Okay, so those keep changing so much that the employer will file a petition under both, and whichever one moves faster, you'll file the adjustment of status.
Correct.
So it's kind of a little similar, in terms of even for EB-5, you're focusing on making that best decision that you can, and you have essentially, unless you're going into your own business and investing $1.05 million over there, if you're looking at $800,000, you have only two choices. And they both have a reserved quota, right? Either 20% at rural or 10% at high unemployment.
Yeah, infra is negligible, right?
Infra is, I think, at 2%, and I think it's negligible. I think, from what I understand, there was one infrastructure project, and I think of our firm CSG was involved in that, and I think it got oversubscribed in China in like less than a week. So there isn't really an infrastructure project that's out there. Not that I'm aware of.
Correct.
So it's going to be one of these two projects. So the question is, which one are you more comfortable with, and which one do you see where you see the the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, so to say, better for you?
Yeah. Correct. Okay.
Never an easy choice. That's why you're so important to the investors.
Yeah.
You, meaning you, are so important to the investors, to guide them.
Correct. I don't know how do I start this, because this whole US gold card picture, it's like there's a lot of buzz. While many of them will say that EB-5 has become obsolete because of gold card coming into picture, but many of them don't realize that it is a gift, it's a donation that you're giving, and it's like $1 million for each applicant. While we are looking at, I'm sure all of us are discussing about this on a daily. Do you think EB-5 will become obsolete if this actually gets passed through Congress and there are really concrete terms and conditions, everything coming into picture then?
You have just, in your statement, proven the power of marketing. That's all that I can tell you. Clearly, he's created a buzz around the gold card. He is a marketing guru, clearly. There's
he's a good
no
businessman.
question. Well, maybe we'll discuss that separately. But he's a marketing guru. And literally within this is a fact, within 10 minutes of us making his announcement, I had a client call me up and say, I want you to file my daughter's, which was now at this point in time, the fourth EB-5 petition that he was doing. He said, I want you to file it next week. And I was like, why? Didn't you hear the president's announcement that he just made right now about, writing off this EB-5 and all? Like, what are you talking about? Just take a chill pill, just relax. Let's see what's going on. Yeah. So there are some people who are really on the ball and see this thing happening, but they're not looking at the reality. I do not see EB-5 obsolete. In fact, I see EB-5 retaining and gaining traction because of all this. Because people at the end of the day, while there was a client recently last week who was in Hong Kong, and he had friends who were telling him, maybe you should be doing the gold card. I said, which card? I said, it doesn't even exist. It doesn't show up anywhere. So EB-5 is in good shape. EB-5 is not going anywhere. I think if the gold card program does come in, it will be a complement to it. It may be an addition to it. I don't think it's supplementing it.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons.
Yeah. So let's say if you were to advise any investor, what are the red flags that you would look at for any potential investor who is going to be filing in the next 3 months per se? With respect to projects.
Well, apart from the loan issue, if the person is not worrying about the loan issue, I would simply say focus on your source of funds. It's like, we know, look, you're in the real estate world in some way, shape or form. And the mantra over there is location, right? For me, my mantra with immigration is documentation. Support your case with documentation because you don't have a face-to-face. There's no interview. So it's all based on the document you submit. Have that as a solid base and you will be fine. And I've been proven right about that over and over and over again. So there's no reason for me to change my mantra. So they should be focusing on the projects. They should be focusing, of course, on whether you have a 956F approved or a 956F pending. It's not the death knell. Let's be very clear. Even pre-RIA, there were projects that went to market without having the approval on their business plans. It was treated a little differently then. But just because you have a 956F pending, if it's a regional center that's done this several times over and always has an approval, there's no reason to expect that they won't get it approved. Psychologically, emotionally, obviously, I think investors are going to be more comfortable with having a 956F approved because then they know the business plans are done, they're approved, and when the application goes in, the immigration is only going to look at their 50%, i.e. the source of funds and the path of funds. So that is something that every investor looks for these days. And I think possibly that's why those projects which have a 956F approved 956F are oversubscribed more readily.
I think good regional centers with a very good reputation and credible track record, they're out in the market because I've been working with a few out in the market 2-3 weeks, they're out. I'm like, wow. Yeah,
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to see. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to see, and the way I see it in the long haul, your role is super important to them in terms of guiding them through their investments. My role, of course, is limited to focusing on the source of funds and path of funds because pretty much most immigration attorneys will not have an SEC or a FINRA license to give financial advice. And I think I repeat this ad nauseum and my clients start laughing the minute I say, you know what my next sentence is going to be.
Yeah. Okay. So, Rohit, before we wrap up, I have to ask you something with respect to the number of languages that you know. I know that you speak 5 languages.
5? I don't know how to
More
count
than
5.
that?
No, less, I think. English, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, that's 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
I'll take the credit for the 5th one, but I don't know which one you're talking about.
Because I know that you speak, I got introduced on an email saying that you speak 5 languages and I'm like, okay, great.
Okay, somebody made a mistake. We'll stay with 4.
Yeah. But I love that about you because I also speak language. I love learning languages and I speak 5. I'm trying to learn Mandarin. Let's see how that goes because I think it has some 3,500 characters. It's crazy. So would you say that actually languages help you connect to your clientele in a much meaningful way compared to just speaking one language?
Yes. It's not just the ability to speak the language, frankly speaking, because I think it's fair to say that people investing $500,000 or $800,000 can certainly speak English quite well. They don't need that other language.
Yeah.
I think that other language allows me to understand them a little better culturally. Again, like I said earlier, my father was a Maharashtrian, my mother was a Parsi. I've got tons of Guju friends. And I mean Guju in a good sense, not in a derogatory manner by any stretch of imagination. So I understand the psyche, I understand what their thought process is. Culturally, it's extremely helpful. And it's very enjoyable.
So what language is home for you?
Well, obviously, your first language, your thought process is in English. So I think English becomes the first one. But I'm equally comfortable in Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi. I mean, equally. I've done a whole presentation in Ahmedabad in Gujarati on EB-5. And I think I struggled through it, but I got through it.
That's crazy.
Nobody threw any tomatoes or anything of the sort. So I think I did okay with that one. Yeah. And, living in New Jersey, there's ample opportunity to practice all three languages.
Yeah, I think a lot of Gujaratis now.
There's Gujaratis, there's Maharashtrians, there's everybody obviously from the north who speaks Hindi. I love listening to Sufi music, even if I don't understand a lot of Urdu. So it's culturally, I think India allows us to be a very rich culture. No question about that.
True that. Yeah. So before we sign off, let's say thank you in the 4 languages.
Oh my God. So Hindi will be Dhanyavad. That was the easy one.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, of course. And then you've got Marathi may also actually be Dhanyavad, I think.
Yeah.
Now you really put me in a spot. I should have been prepared for this one. Gujarati, I think most of the time they will say a thank you. I mean, they might even say, Marathi might say Abhari actually.
Abhari.
Okay. Abhari. Now, Gujarati, is there a lifeline where I can call a Guju friend and say, what do you say for thank you? But, I think everybody knows how to say hello and thank you for this. Yeah. I would have to say a thank you big time for you for this opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this conversation and thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohit. But I have another section too, because it's the spiritual angle side of it, right? Why? Because I'm a very spiritual person. I think that anchors me. And while I have enjoyed that conversation with you, because I understand there is a particular thing that you would do in order to anchor yourself as well, right? Do you actually think with the high stakes that we do business with the kind of dreams, the kind of opportunities, the kind of financial risk and the immigration risk that we look at, is there something that actually you do spiritually which calms you down?
I did, interestingly enough, growing up in different backgrounds, I didn't necessarily grow up with religious dogmas, but I did grow up with spirituality. In the house, there was always spirituality around. And I feel very, very blessed. Even now, I am surrounded by it. I do believe in chanting. I do find it anchors me. I think we've managed to pass a little bit of that down to our boys. My wife is much more into it than I am. But it's a huge anchor and it's taken me through some very, very rough times. Of course, unfortunately, being human, you believe in certain deities at certain times in your life, depending on what the struggles or the challenges are. Yeah. But for me right now, truly the biggest belief is simply saying Shukrana. I cannot tell you how good that makes me feel.
Gratitude,
and I think it's fantastic. I just love it, and it's not a question of which religion I'm following. And I've taken my son sometimes to a particular place and said, the reason why I come here is literally only for Shukrana. I don't come here to ask for anything. Because there's plenty I could ask for, but I've got more than what I probably deserve. So I'm extremely grateful, no question. Like this opportunity right here. It's fantastic.
I'm grateful, Rohit, honestly.
No, it's super.
Because every time that I speak to you or I speak about you to somebody else, there's something that I learn newly. And young blood into this particular industry, it's a very, very, I think I'm just truly indebted for it.
No. Absolutely, but this is great. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today and truly sharing your thoughts with openness and the calmness that everyone deserves to hear. You have spent decades guiding people through one of the most transformative decisions of their lives, and it's been a privilege to learn from you. For me, today's episode is yet another reminder that EB-5 isn't just a legal route, it's a human journey. It's about trust, courage, and the desire to create a better life step by step. To everyone listening, remember, this process isn't about rushing. It's about readiness. Do your homework, ask the hard questions, and surround yourself with the right people. And please, don't fall for shortcuts or kickbacks. They might look tempting in the moment, but they can jeopardize your entire future. At Quantum Global, that's exactly what we stand for: clarity, compliance, and confidence. We work with trusted partners to ensure that every decision you make is informed, ethical, and built for long-term success. If you're exploring your EB-5 journey, reach out to us via the link in the bio. Even if you are just seeking guidance or clarity, we are here to help you and understand your options the right way. Until next time, stay curious, stay compliant, and stay global.